Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to the UpSet podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tasha. And of course, I have the crew with me. We never come alone. What's up, gang?
Hey,
Hey,
family.
happy Sunday.
Hey. So, we're live this week. Last week, we pre-recorded, but we did have a wonderful discussion, if you all may recall, if you didn't see it, on worship. But before we get into that, how's everybody doing? I know there's a lot kind of going on. Tally's not with us today, but how's the rest of the crew doing?
Doing great, Tosh. Doing great.
Can't complain.
Yeah.
Getting
okay.
close, getting used to the early darkness. Always hate
Exactly,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Midnight.
And of course, when you
Midnight
go
at 6
live,
o'clock.
things happen.
I was like, wait, where did y'all
Just before we went on the air, my alarm over on the shelf over there started beeping.
Such is live.
That's the great thing of live television, right?
Oh, it's all good. All right, crew. So like I was saying, last week we were talking about worship, which I was saying earlier, actually developed into something different for me personally. Even to talk in any subject that we tackle, it's almost like, wow, I didn't even know where the discussion was going to go, how it was going to impact me personally. But just to kind of give a short recap, and you guys can jump in. I know we pretty much define worship as, recognizing who God is, having the mindset to know, he's sovereign and who he is in our lives personally. And then also making that distinction between what worship is and what praise is. Praise is a response to recognize, that worship. And so it was really good for us to kind of pinpoint what worship really is, because it kind of helps serves as a marker for us kind of examining what we do. Is it real worship? Is it more praise? Is it a combination? And all of the above. So it was kind of great to kind of talk about it a little bit. And is there anything else that kind of stood out for you guys from last week, from some of the points that we brought up?
I do have a problem with everybody texting me about my shoes.
Oh, how could we forget the preaching shoes?
I'm gonna blame Tally for that, who's not here today. I
Threw you out there, ran away.
And I'm gonna have Chuck. Chuck he came up with one too. But it was funny because right after that I was hit with a something about my shoes, and then I was on another chat room, and then they were just like, "Is this the guy with the shoes?"
Oh no!
You made a name for
sorry.
yourself.
Just tell them you're standing on holy ground. You just change your
Right, right.
Go ahead, preach. Go ahead.
Right. But that was some good fun there. It was a great discussion, and we were able to read some of you all's comments, and so we want to talk about some of those today, and then take it a step further with our part 2. So we're going to turn it over to our lead today. Back to you, Charles.
Okay. Last week, as you said, Latasha, it kind of got me thinking about, after the discussion, even more so about this worship experience and worship definition. And of course, part 2 is subtopic is what makes worship holy. But that's kind of a trick question. But I wanted to start out with the delineation between the types of worship and how that might impact personal worship. And then we're going to move right into what makes worship holy. So there are 2 categories of corporate worship. We talked about that last week a little bit. One is inclusive worship. Inclusive and exclusive. And of course, exclusive worship means one thing. It means that all on one accord, you may dress the same, you may think the same, you may have the same beliefs or doctrines. And then the inclusive worship is kind of open house kind of thing, where, come as you are, literally and figuratively. And so I wanted to talk about the 2 types and to see where the Seventh-day Adventist falls within the inclusive and exclusive worship styles, worship atmospheres, and then move that down to how that influences personal worship. because some people believe, and I have learned to believe, that my experience in an inclusive or exclusive worship environment influences what my personal worship ends up being.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Where does the Seventh-day Adventist Church, in your opinion, fall within the inclusive or exclusive worship environments? Where do you think we fall? Or do we fall in both? And if we do, how?
I Chuck, I kind of think, and some people help me. Sometimes the Adventist church is almost like two churches. I want to say some of our churches are exclusive, and some are a little bit more inclusive, if we want to call them more celebratory churches, where for me myself, listen, me personally, I like to say that my church is inclusive, right? Now, but I may have some exclusive people sitting in the pews. You understand what I'm saying? If if I feel the gospel is for everyone, and so I don't believe that I'm getting in trouble here. Yeah. You have to
Go
dress
ahead.
certain
Too
ways
late.
to come in. You see what I'm saying? You have to, do all these things to come to worship, because sometimes that's all a person has. And I told you, I was angered one Sabbath after I preached. One of my deacons came to me and said that this homeless guy, he would frequent our church. And he was like, "Pastor, this is my church," right? I said, yes, brother, this is your church. And when he came in that day, someone was told to go and get him some clothes out of the bags in the storage room. You understand what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it's, in other words, he wasn't accepted the way he was. So they had to go through some old clothes and pull out something for him. And I was really saddened, angered, and disappointed that our love did not stretch to allow him to come in as he was. So I was even labeled, because I would tell people, you come because God wants to change the heart. And I've seen people come in accepted the way they were, and then later on, guys, they start buying new things, or people start buying, giving them gifts, and they change their dress, and so then they start to feel a part. But why can't we make them feel a part however they look?
Mm-hmm.
I just have issues. I know some people say, you dress your best, you come in before the king, and I get that. But I think we should also allow people to dress with what they have.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, I think that we can be a little bit exclusive with that. And people feel they have to be a part of the country club in order to be accepted.
Marlena,
Yeah.
you said it. Go ahead, GP. Come
No,
on,
I was just
come
gonna
on,
say,
'cause
sometimes we act like we only want to have quality souls, right? You need to be
Yes.
apart.
Mm-hmm.
You
Quality
need to
Christians. Yes.
behave like us. You can't be different. You can't hold on to your individuality, because we are the people of God, and we act
Yeah.
this way, and we dress this
Mm-hmm.
way. And I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
well,
Come up to our standard.
I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest things that we have done is that when we bring people in our church, one of the first thing we let them know is that we are different than everyone else. That's the first
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? So if you're part of the remnant, and I'm being sort of sarcastic, but I'm telling you it's the truth, right? Because no matter what we do in evangelism, whether we got the big tent out there, or whether you come in through Bible studies, one-to-one revelation seminars, no matter how you look at it, what the part of the decision that they're making is that they're going to be different than everybody else, and we bought into that. So then now oh man, this is sad to say, even the worship styles that we had in the street during evangelism is not the same
Mm-hmm. When you
That's
come
right.
that we
to
that we have in the church, as far as
Don't they call that? Don't they call that bait and switch?
I don't know, Chuck, but if you're gonna be on fire this early, then we
Yeah, or catfish evangelism.
catfish.
yeah, that's
Evangelism.
you got the
No, but
drums and the whole band under the
Yeah.
tent, and then you come to the church and there's just a piano.
and
Um,
then right.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say too, even for me talking about worship last week, we all kind of started off saying we saw worship as a service. You know, we the worship service. We just kept equating worship with the programming. But when you're thinking about worship and, you know, a person recognizing who God is and wanting to come to church to express that in some way, you know, the things that we put in there that like it matters, the core is that their mindset, they've come to church to worship. They didn't come to church to be judged. They didn't come to church to see if their clothes are in line with us. They didn't come to church to see if I clap, will they give me those looks or those stares? If I stand up and yell hallelujah, is someone going to send the usher over to hush me up? You know, so it's one of those things where we are exclusive because when people come to worship, we judge what we perceive their worship to be. And when we say, no, it's not, it doesn't look like that. It looks like this. And that's, you know.
Yeah. And how many of us have been in congregations during worship, and let's say a visitor from a Pentecostal church comes and the message is really getting to that person and with the music, and they break out into a dance and go down the center aisle and dance. I've actually witnessed that, and I'll tell you, I only wish I had a camera so I could get the looks on the faces.
Right. That's what it is. That's what it is.
It was like, what in the world is this person doing in our church?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, the thing is, I saw one of the in the chat that someone said, is it Black Adventism or white Adventism? It's both. It's both. I mean, it doesn't make a difference whether, right. You know, when we say we must distinguish between Black versus white. I could walk into some white churches, let's call it that. Let's not even just my Mets shirt, and I'm accepted.
Right.
True that.
I'm accepted. I could sit there. I'm the youth pastor or the youth director of so and so. Oh, it's understood. You can wear whatever you want to wear. We're good. Matter of fact,
and make sure if you try that, just wear an Eagles jersey when you go into Philadelphia churches. Okay.
I hear you. But then you go into some other churches, and I could say this because I'm Caribbean or my family is Caribbean. You walk into some churches like this, you're gonna get a jacket on.
It's a disgrace before
God. You right to the altar.
Yeah, you can't even do that. I mean, as far as it's concerned, especially if, and it doesn't even matter when you talk about inclusive, exclusive, and I know people are gonna be like, oh, don't say that about this. All cultures have it within Adventism, that you get to a place where you have to be dressed a certain way, and people feel alienated because of we want them to worship the way we worship. It's not a good, not a good look. Not a good look.
But if I might go a little step further, you know, we as a people were told how to worship when we were evangelized. Let me break that down a little bit more.
Easy now. Go ahead.
Let me break it down a little bit more. So our culture, you know, as a culture, we are more celebratory. Hey, you can see that when African churches come to camp meeting, right? And you go to their service, they're just clapping and swaying, right? Stepping side to side. They do that, you know, because that was their expression of praise. But then we have other countries, Europeans would come to and train us and say, no. You're playing the drums is a form of witchcraft.
That's
right. And so you want to be holy, as if they were taking us as heathens and kind of training us how to be, you know, straight up citizens, how to worship. So then they say, you know, God's form of worship is to be very quiet. I remember being young in church and we were clapping, you know, someone and the pastor, no, don't clap in here. That's a form of approval. And God doesn't need our approval. You know, I used to be sad and I used to believe that kind of stuff. And then I started reading something called the Psalms.
Go ahead. What?
And I started reading Psalms 150.
Marlena, you mean the Bible?
How to clap my hand. Yeah.
That's the Bible. No, I want to be clear. Is that the Bible? There's a lot of holy Bible.
Yeah. Yes, even the King James, that's the most holy to some people. You know what I'm saying?
To some people. Yeah.
Right. And it told me how to clap my hands in praising God and how to play instruments. Oh, help me in this place.
Oh, yeah.
And how to have your instruments in the sanctuary.
Mhm.
Mm.
So when I learned that, wait a minute, we were flim flammed, this is what, how God says we can worship. Then it's just, I just feel as a pastor, we have to really teach people, to really worship. And sometimes people feel like, they're being taught something different than they were. And I say, well, I just want to enlighten you to the scriptures. Maybe you weren't taught with the scriptures, because they're different styles of worship. Maybe someone just taught you their style and they think that's universal, which is not meant to
Mhm.
be universal.
Right.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think we got to stop looking at the surface stuff to determine whether or not someone is really worshiping. I mean, when you think about worship and it being a personal thing, we're so much more concerned with the external that we're not even taking the time to look at the internal and say, where is this person's relationship with Christ? Have I had a conversation with them to see if they're searching? Do I know it? We're looking at everything on the exterior and making all these determinations about whether or not
Mhm.
someone's worship is appropriate,
Mhm.
whether or not they're really in the right frame of mind. And so it's like, how do we shift ourselves from not worrying about what other people's worship looks like, focusing on our own worship and showing them from our own personal relationship what it looks like in terms of coming from the heart, I guess is what I.
Yeah. And before we go back to our host, I want to push it a little bit off that same point that Latasha just alluded to. So Amos 5, verse 21, God is saying, I despise your religious festivals. Your assemblies are a stench to me. Even though you bring me
Mhm.
burnt offerings and grain offerings,
Mhm.
I will not accept them. Though you bring a choice fellowship offering, I will have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps, but let justice roll on like a river, righteousness roll like a never failing stream. So even though you're doing all the right things and worshiping
Mhm.
properly,
Yeah.
Mm.
how
Mhm.
are you living? How are you
Yes,
treating people?
yes. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Where's
Because
your
God might be
mind?
plugging his ears to your
Yeah.
praise,
Mhm, mhm.
depending
Mm.
on how you're living. So it's
'Cause
not just
yeah,
about
Mm.
yeah.
how we're worshiping and what we're using. That's just secondary.
Well,
How are
worship
you
is a
living?
lifestyle. Yes, yes.
Lifestyle.
Worship is a
Yeah.
lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
You live that thing. That's why when you come on Saturday, we don't have to pump you up, because you're already excited. And, and
Mhm.
and another thing about Adventism sometimes promoting the quietness in church. Let me tell you something. When you live this life and God has done something for you, and you come to church and there's a song that stirs you, or the preacher is really preaching and you can't help but shout out hallelujah, and then somebody say, mm-mm, no, we
Not
don't do
here.
that
Mm.
They don't
here.
take all
Yeah.
We
that.
don't do it
Mhm.
here. Now, I don't allow that in my church, anybody shutting
Disruptive.
someone else's praise,
Mhm.
because you don't know what people have been through, and,
Right.
and, and God has saved us from some grand things, and I'm so excited. And when I come in, you expect me to sit there and be quiet.
Mhm.
Sometimes I can't even help myself, well,
Mhm.
it just feels so good. You can't help but praise God. And I always say this too, with the goodness of God and how wonderful he is. You're telling me it's okay to go to a ball game and enjoy yourself, and you're screaming and you praising God,
Mhm.
but then when you shouting for the team, you're praising that team, right? But then when you come to church, you sit down and somebody tells you that the quietness is holiness. Now when the Bible is talking about quietness, it's talking about disruptive noise, just chatter and stuff unnecessarily. But God is
Mhm.
calling us to have praise in
Right.
responses, which require sound and noise,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so when I've gone through a lot, if I can give man, my praise and my best, can I give God my best and be acceptable?
Mm.
Listen. I took my mom to go grocery shopping. It might have been like 3 weeks ago. I'm walking back to the car. This lady is in her car and she is blasting "I Am" by Jason Nelson. Am I right? Jason Nelson, "I Am." Okay, anyway, I could tell you what it is. I don't even have to ask
Mhm.
you, okay? So she's playing it and it drew me to the car. I said,
Hmm.
I didn't know what it was, but I knew that she was in there just rocking, not dancing, but she had that feel. So I
Mhm.
Mhm.
knocked on the window. I said, "Excuse me, who's that?" And she said, it's Jason Nelson. I am. And I said, okay, Jason Nelson, I am. I get into my car and I find it, and I find it and I start playing it. And while I'm playing it, it's like
You start crying.
yeah,
Mhm.
right. And
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and and you get this overwhelming feeling that every word that Jason Nelson is singing, it's like that was for me right then and there. I go
Mhm.
home. Just hear me out. Hear me out. I go there, and the next morning I set it so that the song I could hear it. I jump in the shower, same song. Right
Hmm.
before, right in the afternoon, playing the same song, and I play it over and over. I know everybody in the house is sick
Mhm.
and tired of me, but
It
no, I really
speaks to
am.
you,
But man, I'm
right?
telling you.
Uh-huh.
So for me, if when I prepare a sermon for whatever's coming on Sabbath, I am is playing in my mindset. It's just
Hmm.
playing in my mindset. It's just coming out. All of those times that I turned on I am, it's worship. All of those
Hmm.
Amen.
times that that I'm giving homage to the great I am because of this song, it's worship. I don't
Mhm.
expect to walk into a church after worshiping all week long for them to tell me, little feet, be careful where you take me to. Shh, anything
Mhm.
for Jesus, only let me do.
Mhm.
I can't do that. And the reason why I brought that up is because, and I know we're gonna touch this afterwards. One of the problems we have is that we want to prescribe, is the word, prescribe for other people
Mhm.
our own experience.
Right.
It doesn't work that
Or
way.
or even say to someone, "The way you're worshiping is disturbing my worship." Okay, because
Mm.
this came up, and I think I saw someone was talking about, high church in the comments.
Yep,
We hear
I
this
saw
term
it.
high church. And I've been at church where I think I was even, like, greeting or something, and I saw, someone come out, an older person holding their ears, like, and I thought something was wrong, so, I'm like, "Oh, okay, are you okay?" "Oh, the music, I can't."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Wow," like, she was visibly bothered by it, I mean,
Mhm, mhm.
physically, and then she said, I can't do it," and, you know, my instinct was to say, "Oh, come on, like, come on, let's be a little bit more progressive, it's not that loud," but for her, she was visibly disturbed, and so I said to myself, is it possible that where one person is in the church right now waving their hands and,
Mhm.
giving themselves to God, that now that has interrupted someone else's worship? I mean, so what do you guys think? Is it
Right.
possible that my
It,
form of worship or however we
mhm.
express ourselves may
It could.
actually disturb someone else? And how do
It
we
could.
reconcile that?
Well, we
Well,
can also go ahead, Chuck.
no, I was gonna use your metaphor, or Melina, with people go to sports events and get up and I mean, if you go if you go to the Eagles game, you could have one guy come in, look like a bookworm with glasses. He's got his little papers with him. He sits down, and then the other guy comes in, painted green, with a
Mhm.
green wig and an eagle hat, and he's yelling to the top of his
Mhm. That's
voice
true.
during the whole game. You got these guys sitting next to each other. Are they both enjoying the game? Yes, because the little bookworm looking guy is sitting there
Man,
writing down
Chuck.
stats,
Man, Chuck,
Yep.
that's good.
and he's
Well,
excited because he's
Yeah.
seeing his player. He's writing down stats, and the guy next to him is yelling and standing up there all the time. But they both are enjoying the game.
Mhm.
mhm,
Oh, I
Mhm.
love that, Chuck. That
that's
is
So
good.
that.
so it's
Yeah,
tolerance.
that's good.
So, it's to say, even though my experience, what I came here for may not look like what I'm not going to take that away from you. He's not gonna say to the guy, "Come on, get up, stop writing and yell with me." And the guy is not gonna
Exactly.
say, "Can you be quiet? I can't
Can you?
write
I
properly
can't
when you're
concentrate.
screaming."
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can also make sure that the worship service, if it is a high praise type of environment, you have instruments that is well balanced with
Mhm.
with the volume. I used to tell when I sign like this to my music, that mean bring it down, right?
Mhm.
And I'm a
Mhm.
music kind of pastor, so and so that means to them, hey, you got to keep it at a good volume, but not a disturbing volume, because you want people to be able to worship together, and that it's that acceptable by all. And even,
Mhm.
types of music, I make sure, hey, there's a hymn saying, for those who love the hymns, and then, there's a gospel music or the contemporary songs, so that you kind of, addresses, everyone's style. But I just want us to get to the place where church is really the light of the gospel, when we're being that light that God tells us to be, in Matthew. And so it's open to all people. You can come off
Mhm.
the street. You can be, you can be drunk and just, I just feel like I want to be in that church right now, that you can come and be accepted the way you are. You don't have to go and get yourself all dressed. And, we don't know if this somebody's last day, on earth, or this is their last week, and they feel they have to, do everything. And so I just want us to
Mhm.
be churches that welcome all people. Someone said to me, this church, anybody can come in this church, but it wasn't in a good way. It was a
Right.
negative way. Like, we just let
We
anybody
just
in
let
here.
anybody
We
in,
And I
right?
accept
was like,
anybody.
that's
Mhm.
exactly right. That is who
Mm.
God came for. Anybody and
Right.
everybody. That's
Yeah.
Mhm.
who he came for. And
Mhm.
that's how we should change our, mentality. And the dress revolt, all of that, you believe in dressing fine. That's good. I'm not trying to tell anyone to change what they do. Just don't hinder other people,
Right.
because of your beliefs. Don't make dress a sin. You see what I'm saying? If you
Mhm.
don't dress up for church, you're sinning. Or um
You,
I,
you know,
I, I
Yeah,
you,
don't
well,
know.
you,
let me share with you another experience I've
go
had.
ahead.
you know, Many years ago, still growing up in the church, uh, and I won't name the church, but you could probably figure out, because I haven't
Call
been
them
to
out. Call
too
them out.
many. Um,
Probably
there was
GP's.
a
GP's
group
church.
there was a group that was
Is in
invited
Philadelphia.
to do a concert at our church. And this was a gospel group, and they came in. They had instruments, they had drums, a lot of percussion, And when halftime came, the break, the intermission, the first elder of the church politely asked them to leave
Ooh.
Mm.
in the
Ooh.
middle of the concert
Oh,
because he says,
wow.
"We don't play music like that in our church." The audience gasped, and the group
Oh,
had to break down their
wow.
stuff, and they left.
And they were guests.
They
Mm.
were a guest choir, yeah, and because of the style of music, and it was gospel music, very rhythmic. They were invited to leave,
I hope
and
it was a Pine Forge
that
choir.
was what you say. You hope it
Was it
wasn't.
Pine Forge?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Well, bring out the guns right
Don't
now.
make them say the name. Don't
No,
make
it's
them
not.
Right,
say it.
right. No, I'm
Somebody
not going to
just
say the
asked.
name, but I'm just giving that as an example of how exclusive we can be.
Charles, you are up here. You're talking about something that has happened. It's happened all the time. I can remember 16, 17 years old and a group come in and sing exactly the same thing. Matter of fact,
Mhm.
board meeting was held that night when they
Mm.
came to speak for MV.
Wow.
I've seen those type of things. Listen, I bought a choir, but this is not against the system. I bought a choir to camp meeting from Andrews University. And some of those people were so upset that they disrupted us while we were singing at Pine Forest. I mean, at camp meeting that evening. Elder Kibble had brought in the choir to come in. He got up and he spoke. That's what you need, leadership, to be able to speak for you.
Mhm.
And he got up and he spoke. He was like, hold on a second. If you don't like what they're doing, you leave. I
Mm.
don't know, Chuck, if you were recording that. I would love to look into your archives to see
No, I
that. But
wasn't recording
my
that one.
my choir, I think we came the year after New Jersey Mass came or something like
Oh, you're
that.
talking
But
about here at camp meeting?
at camp meeting, we're
Oh,
out there
yeah,
for
I
camp
was.
meeting.
Yeah,
Out there
yeah,
for camp
I do
meeting.
remember that.
I simply believe that Marlene, I wanted to tell you about this. We keep saying we, I did not you. We keep saying worship. We come to fellowship, right,
Mm.
with what we already have. And
Mhm.
see, I think I kind of work it the other way around. I'm coming
It's
to
the
worship.
lifestyle. Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
no, you did say that in the beginning,
Mhm.
and I'm for that 100%. That's the reason why I could never sit in the church and say, "This is long," or I can never sit in a church and say, "Oh, I'm bored." I can't because of who I'm there serving. It
Mhm.
may not be what I want it to be, but on the flip side of it, I always look at who is it that I'm serving. And I think that if we as worship leaders, pastors, because remember one thing about pastors run 11 o'clock worship hour. Now,
The worship
and
leader, yeah.
I know
Uh-huh.
I know I'm gonna have a problem in the chat when I say this, but people normally have this thing about pastors and they controlling 11 o'clock hour. That's their pulpit. They control 11 o'clock worship hour. They could change up what I know this is not it, Chuck. They could change up whatever they want to change up without even asking permission. That's another.
Ooh,
That's
the
another.
Sure.
time, the time, Doc.
You heard what I said?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's
You heard what I
sometimes
said?
I have to cut the praise team songs because
Yeah.
we've had other things. I'm saying, just do one
It is
song now.
your
Just do one.
prerogative. It
Don't
is
do two
your
right now. Just
prerogative.
do
Yes.
one.
And then they get
Because
happy and do 5 because they practice 6.
And if they
Right.
do 2, they'll be the equivalent of 20 minutes, 10 minutes each.
Right, right.
And I'm not jumping on. Listen, guys, I'm not jumping on praise team because sometimes we preach too long when
Well,
we're not
Yeah.
even. When
talk
Marlena,
to Pat.
Mm.
Talk to
GP,
Pat.
when
Talk to Pat.
it's the shoes, y'all. Is it the shoes? where we don't even have to preach that day.
That is right. That's
We don't even
right.
have to preach.
That's right.
It's
That's
the
right.
whole worship experience, not the
Mhm.
pastor preaching,
Amen.
not the this. It's the experience, and that's
Or
what we
just
need
give
to
an
do.
altar call. You know, they've sang and everyone is just touched. Maybe it's just time just to do an altar call, you
Yep.
know, because
Yep.
what disturbs me is guys, we want to appear holy before the nations.
Hmm.
But when we do things like that to our guests and we tell them to leave and your worship is not accepted here, you know, we bring such a disjustice to ourselves and I believe to Jesus Christ. You know,
Mhm.
they're singing the gospel, you know, and it may not be your style, you know, just sit there and be polite, be kind, you know.
Mhm.
Don't make people think they're going to hell because, you know, they might be clapping a little bit or, oh, God forbid if it's shouting, you know, you
But it's
Mhm.
not even
crazy,
our
you know.
Marlena.
Right.
Let's stop saying our guests because it's not just our guests that we do it to. We do it
Right.
Mhm. Yeah,
to
we do it
someone who
for.
has had an experience that week.
Mhm.
They come
Mhm.
in that week and we say, "Oh, wow, Sister So and So is plumb crazy this week. She off her meds." When I mean, or he when really she's just having a worship experience. You know, it doesn't have to be guest. I said she, but it could be he too.
Yeah, that's right. Now,
Oh,
another thing too, I know we're going to transition to talking a little
Mhm.
bit more about holy, but you know, I always hear and you see it circulated on social media a lot. You know, be nice. You never know what someone has gone through. You don't know everyone's story, and so I always try to get into that frame of mind, particularly when I'm going into a house of worship, because it allows you to just shed yourself of judgment because you don't know what it took for somebody to walk through those doors that morning. You
Mhm.
don't know
Mhm.
what the Holy Spirit did to them to get
Mhm.
them there. And then when they get there, we mess it up. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like,
Mhm.
it's like, come on, guys. If they
Right.
made an effort to be in that place, they're seeking Jesus somehow, or God is trying to help
Mhm.
them find him. We should never allow ourselves to be a stumbling block to them understanding what
Mhm.
it is they're
Mhm.
supposed to worship, because we
Mhm.
can't assume that everyone who comes to church has a relationship with God or has a
wow.
relationship with Jesus. And if we're coming in there making, oh, these are the people that have a relationship with you, I don't want anything to do with that. We have to come with the mindset of, I want them to see Christ in me so that
Mhm.
they have a deeper understanding of who he is and they
Mhm.
want to worship him in whatever way they choose. But the important part is that they know him. And so if we could just look at people as, we don't know your story, we don't know, we're not judging what you wore this morning, we're not assuming you picked the worst thing in your closet, we're not assuming that you're uncultured because you clap and wave your hands when the song is going on. If we can just get our minds to just say, we don't know their story, but we can certainly help
To respect
deepen
their
their
worship.
yes,
Mhm.
by respecting it.
Yes.
Yes.
You're right.
And
You know,
that's
as another. No, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Marlene.
And when you say respect, that's respecting within the congregation of Adventism. As I said, you know, people people worship according to their experience. They worship according to how they were taught, unless they start to learn more, if they were in a church that was really restrictive, and now they feel, I can really come and praise God. I can shout, I can clap my hand, I can really, enjoy this without being judged, and so we have to give respect to everyone in that congregation. But if we would, as it's been stated, if we would have the law of kindness on our hearts. Spirit of Prophecy said, Ellen White said this, that where one person is saved now, we would save 100 if we were only kind. And that's what we must remember. We're talking about church, guys. I just feel like, people are going through hell out here.
Yes.
I mean, hell, and I want to come to church. And when I come, I hear a good word. I want to be able to stand up and clap, or I hear a good song because it's touching me. It's better than going home, because going home, I'm getting beat up, or going home, life is crazy, or, something is happening. I'm going through hell on my job. When I come to church, I want to feel accepted. I want to hear the words of God that's going to change my life. Can we make church like that?
Here she go. Here she go. Here she go. Here she go. Here she go.
Can we make it like that?
We make church like that. That's the next sermon right there.
Okay.
Go. So I know we are live, guys. We're kind of forgetting that we're live, and that we have some interesting comments in the chat, some questions,
absolutely,
some dialogue going there.
First of all, who's Kerry Williams?
That's the resident scholar in my home. She's the resident scholar. She's she when I left the house, I said, well, honey, this is part 2 of worship. She said, oh, okay, I got a word about that. Okay, I'll see you later. I'm like, I've got it. She's going to be on. Okay, like a warning. But she did study it quite a bit.
So she can help
came
us
up some
with
interesting.
She's educated.
Yeah, well, she did. She put a comment in there. I think it was in there
about the hymns.
I don't know if it. Well, she said something about colonization.
Yeah.
Sometimes our worship styles have come from colonization. I believe that's what I saw. Yeah.
And many of our hymns are from Sunday churches.
Yeah. So
why are we saying Sunday and Sabbath churches music?
Monte Cristo Duke made this comment, which of course garnered a lot of interest from the chat. I have a problem when the praise team is singing Sunday church music. Okay, I don't know how we make that distinction, which is what the question is now. You know, what is it? And then,
what is Sunday church music?
You should be singing the gospel. All right, the gospel is for everyone.
Yeah. So.
Right.
So I don't know if that person wants to distinguish.
I didn't know if that was like just a little challenge there, but that's not what they really meant.
Because other people want to know.
Yeah, it may have they may have meant style. I mean, because quite frankly, if you do the research, some of the hymns in the hymn book were once bar songs.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, did you want to show any more comments?
Do y'all know that even? Go. Why are you looking up, Tosh? Pat, maybe you remember in GP when we were studying church history, right? The Adventist church. Remember, they were quite praisey.
That's right.
When doing that apostolic movement in the early the church didn't come back to the latter half of the 1800s, but it was an apostolic move, and so they were really quite praisy, in their worship.
I'm glad you repeated that, because I thought I heard you say crazy.
Crazy, crazy. Everybody was crazy, like charismatic, more charismatic, right?
No, and they were.
Right. But it wasn't until like later on, like the early 1900s or something like that, when they felt like, they're getting kind of carried away. We don't want to be associated with that. So we want to now tone down our services, right?
Yeah, and Ellen White addressed that too in her letter about the bedlam of noise. So a lot of people like to reference the bedlam of noise to anything they don't like, but you got to read things in context.
Right.
So keep on going, Marlena. Go ahead.
So when we say Sunday, Sabbath, I want us to understand Adventism came out of the Methodist movement. We started studying work, and at the beginning, we talk about William Miller. He didn't accept Sabbath truths right then. It was the Seventh-day Baptists, and they were saying, we just thought this Sabbath thing would be an easy catch, because it's the word.
Mhm.
And so they didn't become Sabbath keepers until later on, 1860 something, when they start, keeping Sabbath. But before they weren't, but everybody was worshiping together. So when you say Sunday and Sabbath, it all has the same roots,
Same focus.
Mhm.
Yep.
same
Same
Protestant
people.
roots.
Right.
Same
Yep.
thing.
Right.
You're still
Well, to
worshiping
tell you
God.
the truth, when you look at and don't get me wrong, because as much as I really was smiling, but not putting down our friend Cristo. I wasn't putting him down. Monte Cristo, won't put him down at all. But what I do want to say is that that is one of the things that we do. We try to figure out, what's theirs and what's ours. Remember, that's how we started off in the very beginning. When the truth is that the Adventist church, especially the early church, is an amalgamation of a lot of different religions when people found the light. So it's you're going to find Pentecostals coming over. You're going to find well, Jehovah's Witness was a little bit after, but you're going to find Methodist. Of course, we came directly out of the Methodist church. We still have a lot that over 100 and something years, we still have a lot of Catholicism that's built into Adventism, right?
Wow.
That's
That
right.
was the mother church. Yeah.
it's a spread of a whole bunch of things. Now, I love what you talked about the Sabbath, because the Sabbath, there were people who the reason why Adventism got so tight on Sabbath is because there were converts that kept Sunday better than the way we keep Sabbath. So when they converted, all they did was change the day.
Change the
Not the
day.
time,
Right.
just the day.
Just the day. They didn't stop doing what they were doing because they still kept it that way. Same thing with music. All right. So when you have African, or when you have rhythmic music that's coming in, we're not going to stop doing that. We've been doing that from day one. That's how we got the slave ships. We got through that way, and
Right.
even now we make it through this way. So I think that one of the problems that we have in the Adventist church, not a problem, but a challenge, is that our church is a worldwide church. It's not
Right.
it's not a, if you say African Methodist, that's what it is. Adventism is worldwide. So we have to accept the different cultures, and,
Yes, yes.
and also
Absolutely.
we have to accept the way that we deal with our own experience.
Right.
That's what
And,
that's the key, the experience.
Now that leads me to the third part of our discussion of personal worship. And I will go as far to say that a lot of times our personal worship is influenced by our either exclusive worship or our inclusive worship. Ends up dictating who we are when we do personal worship. So it varies.
Break
It
that
will
down,
vary.
Chuck. Break that down.
In other words, if you are accustomed to an exclusive worship environment, when it's time for your personal worship, some of those elements may carry over into your personal worship. It could be quiet. It could be, there could be some components that you learn from your church every week. Same thing with inclusive. Okay. You may spread out a little bit. Maybe the church only plays sacred music from the sacred church choir, and you get home and you want to hear a little Edwin
I want
Hawk.
to hear from your wife right now on that sacred music stuff that you're talking about. Say, oh, she did.
Right.
Oh, hold on. She
Right.
did. Hold on.
That's a
She
nice
did.
comment.
Say it, Sister Carrie. Church in Europe, tell them, sister.
This calm down thing, parentheses.
Came from the worship of the church in Europe. European churches were cathedrals where you had to be quiet because the stones reverberated the slightest sound. Ain't nobody in this conference.
I thought you said,
It's
first of all,
covered
hold on.
Yeah.
Chuck, I thought you said that she was a scholar.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, let me put it this way. When I say she's a scholar, in comparison to me, she's a scholar.
No. I agree that she's a scholar. She just got an attitude at the end. Ain't nobody in this conference got a cathedral.
See, I never even knew that.
Well, she was being Yeah, she was
Yeah.
being inclusive in her comments.
And this is and Sister Carrie is Elder Carrie. I like to call you darling. And she is so right, because we learned this in our church history
That's
classes
right.
too, right? And it said that's where we came from. The mama, help me.
Mhm.
The mama is
Mhm.
very quiet. You come to church. I remember in one of my worship classes, we had to go and visit, a different kind of faith. So someone went to the Catholic church, and any Catholics here, I'm not, bashing your faith or anything like that, but it was very quiet, and the person said it felt so holy. Now, why would they associate that being more holy than if you go to some other place and there is, a sound and more of a praise? Because the Catholic Church, the mom taught that, there was in other words, when you came before God, you had to be very quiet. And of course, that was a change from the early church, right? In Acts, that's a
Mhm.
change from Acts. So that all changed. So then, when Protestantism came, and all the churches then, broke away, right? Some people still held on to the mama.
Marlena, I got to jump in on this because I had the opportunity to go to visit about 50 cathedrals in Italy, Rome, all up that side. And man, I went in there. The Lord is in his holy temple. Right? And but here's the key to that. The reason also that it was quiet like that is because they spoke to the dead and they reverenced their dead.
Mm.
They reverenced the souls that were among them. Same way that when we go to a park like Arlington National Cemetery, we're quiet in the park.
Mhm.
Who says that we're supposed to be quiet in the park? It comes over from their worship of the dead. Right.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
really and truly,
Right.
she's right about that. So if you look at coming over from Europe and you say, all right, everybody, the king and the queen. Remember, the king broke away from the Catholic Church because he wanted to get with Miss So and So, right? So what he did, he brought over he brought over everything, including the quietness. Look at the colonies, Jamaica,
Mhm.
Barbados, or the whole
Mhm.
Caribbean, even
Yeah.
the Dutch. All
Mhm.
of those are coming from either the king or the mom or the mother church. Do you see the
Right.
reason why the Caribbean church now is looking like the queen with whatever it is that the queen wants?
Mhm.
So really,
Mhm.
when you look at it, the style of worship that they're really coming with is really the worship of the dead or the worship of the souls. Why it's that quiet, while the
Mm.
rise in praise comes from Black Southern.
Mhm.
Also, didn't it come out of
Straight from Africa, yes,
right,
but
straight from Africa.
mhm,
We see it in slavery, when people would create songs, they started creating Negro spirituals, that spoke to their hearts.
sure,
Some of them were praisy and
yeah,
some were a little bit more quiet, but our form of worship did start in Africa, and that's where we were told that our drums and things cause devils, but and
yes,
and and, and that's true with some. Is who's using the drum. The sin is not in the instrument. So you don't
Right.
make an instrument and says you're sinful. The instrument, right? It's the
Right.
person playing it and for the
Mhm. And their
purpose
intent,
that they're
yeah.
And the
using.
purpose.
So
Right.
you can't take a instrument that doesn't have a soul to make it
Right.
sinful to say it can't be in another place. So that's why I wanted to say we
Yeah, and
you
and
I'm
know
with
the
you, I'm
people
with you.
people make that line about, oh, some of the gospel songs are just R&B songs with the words changed, and how dare you, sing that in church because I just heard that on the radio a week ago, but it's just had different, and that doesn't make the song holy.
Listen, I need to hear your wife right now, Carrie. I listen. No. Let me tell you something. I think about because I grew up with the pipe organ.
Mhm.
mm.
When you go back
So did
and
I.
recognize that, yeah, that the pipe organ.
That's right. Organs came from the bar. Thank you, Brother Grissom. That
Wait,
is
wait, and
correct.
wait. Before you get there, the
Wait, was
organ
it the pipe
wasn't.
organ or the Hammond B3?
No, the
What?
Hammond B3. The Hammond B3 came out of the
Yeah.
bars, right? No, no,
Okay.
no, no. Really, it's true. It's true. But the
Right.
organ came out of pagan sexual practices.
Mm.
That's where the pipe organ and all of that was played. Listen, listen,
Mhm.
listen. Then when you
Mhm.
got to the Hammond organ and all of that to our day, you got the C3, because it has a skirt. It covers its legs.
Mhm.
You got the
Oh, wow.
B3. The B in the B3 is because those are the ones that's played in the bars. So once you move the
Ah.
B3 organs into the church, it's showing
Mhm.
legs, and women are not supposed to show their legs. So they put a
Ah.
skirt around it and call
Wow.
it the C3.
Mm.
Well,
That's
I'll
where the
tell
Getting us
you,
some
you learn so
education.
much on
I
the
know,
UpSet
right?
podcast, I'll
Right.
tell you. Now you know how
Wow.
many churches that have B3s that are listening to this podcast. They're going to go to their pastor. They're
We
going to go
need
to
a
the church and
skirt.
say,
We need a
"We
Yeah,
didn't."
make
skirt.
sure it's long enough now. Make sure it's long enough.
Well, I
Oh,
want to. I
dear.
want to. We have what about maybe 10 more minutes, and I wanted to talk about personal worship and how how we determine, in lieu of that, how we determine what is holy, because personal worship is, in fact, what it is. It's personal, and sometimes people will worship in their personal worship and not say a word. Others will sing and dance. Um,
Yeah.
I know many times on my road trips for the conference, I'd have on my gospel tunes, and I'd be moving. I mean, folk would drive by me and said, "Is this guy having a seizure or what's going on?" You know, I'm just having worship in my car with my tunes. You know, and when you look at other religions, like for instance, if you see a Muslim, one of Muslim faith, um, put down his what do you call that they roll out? It's like it looks like a small rug where
Yeah, Matt.
they're mat. Yes, you know, if someone does that in an airport, you know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Getting ready to
Okay,
pray. Yeah.
they're getting ready to pray, and that's their moment of devotion and prayer. So it varies. It varies in personal worship. So we've discussed, you know, inclusive, exclusive, and how that could influence our personal worship. So what would you say your personal? Let's give some examples of personal worship.
Chuck, you know what I was going to do? I was going to
Mhm.
put GP on the spot.
Okay.
He grew up in his home, Adventist home, his wife, Adventist home, and now you have a little baby, Elizabeth. Because I know this, if I should go back and do worship all over again, I wouldn't do it the way my parents taught me. I'm talking about with my own kids. I would change it. Okay.
Mhm.
I'd like to put GP on the spot. GP, from the way that you grew up and did worship in your home, would you change your worship style? I don't know what to call it, guys, but your worship style with a Liz, or have you thought about it? Any of those? Have you thought about how you were going to do worship in your house?
Yeah, I've made a decision that I want to have our home worship be inclusive, and so when Elizabeth starts talking officially, she tries now, but she will give input as to what songs we can sing, what we can
Right.
do, how to switch it up and be flexible, so that we're not just singing the same 3 hymns, repeating the same 5 psalms, and then
Mhm.
praying at the same time like robots every day. Like I don't want it
That's
to
right.
be robotic.
Mm-hmm,
I want it to be
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
authentic
Mm-hmm.
and just
Authentic.
pleasant. I want it to be a pleasant experience, not
Yep.
just a form
Yeah.
of punishment that I have to endure.
Thank you, GP.
And
Thank you.
we make, to our children, we make Jesus unattractive. You can't do this, you can't
Mhm.
sing that, you can't read that, you can't say that, can't do this, can't.
Mm.
And they're like, well, what can we do?
Right.
So then the world is so much more attractive, and we just told them you couldn't do all of this stuff in Christ, which
Mhm.
Jesus wants us to come, before Him in our own way. Certainly, respectful as we should come before God. But if they want to sing, they want to play their instruments,
Mhm.
even if they, want to dance, and do their
Mm-hmm.
thing, before God and in worship. I think that we got to let people worship God. And I don't get in trouble because some preachers like you got to teach people how to worship. Um,
Mm.
I just feel Pat help me. People say you got to teach
You
them
know,
how to worship. So
well, that's an interesting statement when we say we need to teach people how to worship.
mhm.
Uh, and I would go so far as to say we need to teach what worship is,
That's
Mhm.
yes.
and
Mhm.
then how to worship comes later because
Yes.
that could be exclusive with that particular person.
Listen.
So, but if they
Chuck.
don't know what worship is,
Right.
they won't even get to a style of worship because they don't fully understand what it is.
So true.
Chuck, I think about angels. Some, it's one thing Fordham used to always talk about is angels. He always used to. It was his thing. You know, I know my dad says to me when I was growing up, "Close your eyes so you're not distracted." You know, you know. I'm talking about during prayer,
Yeah.
and but that's the only reason why I knew why. I'm talking about a part of worship now, right? That now I know why I close my eyes, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Angels fold their wings in the very
Mhm.
presence
Mhm.
of
And they
God.
make a sound too. What
They
do they say, Pat?
holy, holy,
Holy.
holy,
They don't
right?
say holy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think
In
over and
repetition,
over.
Shout.
Right,
Yeah.
in
right,
repetition, and
right. We
now
might even be surprised that there could be a B3 up there.
it
Uh-oh.
don't tell me that, or else I'm going straight there now. Translation, right? I no. The reason why I'm saying that is because you can't tell me how not to repeat and be in a repetitive spirit. Because if angels
Sure.
are crying out, "Holy, holy, holy," and you're
Yes.
telling me in my feeble state. Because I've heard it. I've
Yeah.
had gospel
In the
choirs, and we're
repetition.
running that same chorus back and forth. We run that same chorus. And people say, "Why you got to play that over and over again?" You know why? Because I
7-Eleven
feel it.
songs. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
7-Eleven. That's what
Because
they
I
call it.
feel that, and so
Mhm.
I know, Chuck. I'm gonna tell you, I listened to what you have said, and one of the ways that I rejoice in my worship is that when I learn something new, I can't hold it. That's a part of
Mm.
my worship, right? Like if
Mhm.
I learn something new, I say, "Oh snap!" Like Tally, who's not here. When I think about Tally, who Tally is not only a wordsmith, but he knows the
Yeah.
Greek and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
He's
Once he
yeah.
a
breaks it
Bible scholar.
down,
Yeah.
you kind of say to
Mhm.
yourself, "Oh
Mhm.
wow, it's deeper than the English
Yeah.
language,
Yes.
man."
Yes.
Mhm.
And then you
Mhm.
say to yourself, "God, is that what you meant for me?" Sometimes you weep,
Mm.
sometimes you laugh, sometimes you're like,
Yes.
Mhm.
"What? I'm free! I can't
Mhm.
believe this thing." And you start talking. That's a part of worship, and that's what I like to see in the house. I like to see it, and that's why Latasha said it earlier, and I even put it in house of worship. It's really house of freedom, or a house that you can express whatever it is that you
Yeah.
want to express. That's what I
Especially
look
when
at it
coming from
as.
the heart, Pat. Exactly
Yeah,
what you're
Yeah.
saying. It's
Right.
coming
come
from my
on,
heart. I mean,
Mhm.
come
it's
on.
what God has done for me and been for me. And I want my freedom in how to express that.
Mhm.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
freedom.
Even our indigenous brothers and sisters,
Who's that? When you say
shout out
indigenous, what do you mean by indigenous, Chuck? I just want to make sure.
He
the
loves.
original owners of this continent.
Tell them.
Um, you will find that because I attend, what is called Indian powwows, and when they do their dances and their worship dances, it's very colorful.
Mhm.
It's very physical. But then they have a spiritual session where they sit quietly and they may sing a song or they may have a quiet drum in the background. That is their way of worshiping. Now, they may not be worshiping the Christian God as we try to differentiate, but they do have styles. They have times when they do certain things and times when they do not. It's part of their system of worship. But
So they have, like your wife said in the chat, they do have a liturgy. There's a
they
liturgy
do.
that follows,
Right.
as far as it's concerned. Yeah,
Hmm.
I
And
mean,
I just want to piggyback that, Chuck, because I think that's where, Europeans tried to differentiate our worship, how it should be from
Right.
nations that were not worshipers of, God of heaven, or Jesus Christ,
Hmm.
and so we shouldn't have a heathen like, heathen anti-Christian, type of worship style, so that, all those things shouldn't be seen in the
Hmm.
church.
Hmm.
Mm.
can,
Mhm.
can
It's
can I go
that's
back to one thing before we go out, Marlena? I
mhm.
needed to say this because I grew up around reggae music.
Hmm.
You got good reggae, you got bad reggae, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I cannot listen to gospel reggae. I know the chat's gonna light up. I'm sorry about that, but I can't.
Mhm.
The reason why I
Oh, they might
can't,
agree with you.
no, I
Right.
can't because it takes me back to that. Hold on.
Mhm.
But I have to be careful that if someone is getting their praise on with it, that I can't stop them from getting their
That's
praise
right.
on.
Yeah.
Now I'm
That's
going to
right.
say I'm going to say something that people may have a disagreement with. I know the time is running, but because it's the same God that they're serving,
Yeah.
and I'm serving the same God that they're serving,
Mm-hmm.
I got to
Mhm.
be able to be humble enough to accept their praise as
That's
well as
right.
And it's
them
not
being
for
able to
you.
accept
Mm-hmm.
my
Good
Mm-hmm.
praise.
point.
Not
Good
to
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
No, you said it. And it's really not for me. So I should really celebrate that they
Right.
are worshiping
Right.
That's
instead
right.
Amen.
of taking it
Amen.
back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
It's
that
amazing.
falls on the inclusive side
That's
of
it.
Yep.
You're right.
thinking,
You're right.
the
Mm-hmm.
You're
inclusive
right.
side.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And I would like to think that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is an inclusive church, but we still have our problems.
Yeah, we got work to do.
Right. We still have our problems. And but I think it's a good discussion on it. It's food for thought. I think some people hopefully will revisit, what they understand to be worship and how they worship, even their own church and themselves personally. That's my prayer, that folk will give some more thought to the whole worship experience.
Love it,
Yeah.
Chuck. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to go a little deeper too, I think for me, in reflecting on these last two episodes, for me, I want to get to the heart of worship. We heard that, get to the heart. The
Right.
heart of worship is my personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
The
That's right.
more I deepen that, the more I know who I'm serving,
Mhm.
everything else will fall into place. It's not about the songs I choose or this morning I was doing a workout with my girls. It was a gospel workout. And so they were playing gospel music. We were doing exercises, but one song came on, we worship you. And I just, all of a sudden, I didn't care what the person was doing on the screen. I was just like waving my hand. And I got caught up. Like I didn't even realize that
Right.
I was no longer into the exercise routine.
So
And
you're
I
a
said
Sunday
to myself,
worshiper now?
Right.
I was like, wow. And I knew it was because of my experience. It's because of what I
Right.
know God
Sure.
is doing, how God is
Sure.
showing up in my life.
And what you felt at that moment. And what you felt at that moment. We have
Yep.
those moments.
Yes.
A buddy of mine calls it a Christ moment.
Wow.
You have that moment, and I've had a lot of them in my car. I'm playing the
Mhm.
song and it comes on. I forget the artist's name, but when I hear this song,
It's
a
committed.
word from the Lord.
It's committed.
We need
Oh, we need a
we
word
need
from the Lord.
we
Yeah.
need a word
I
from the
love that
Lord.
song.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that
It's
just
true.
goes through me.
Yes.
We always do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll find myself driving and I'm weeping,
Yeah. Yeah.
hoping no one will see what's going on. But that's a moment of worship.
Right.
Yes.
That really is a moment of worship.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Amen.
so when you know him, it's going to come because when
Yeah.
we hear those, but a lot of times we try, clap your hands. Okay. Say hallelujah. That's empty. If you don't know Christ, if you don't have a relationship, what's going to draw you
Mhm.
to want to do those things?
Mhm.
It's like,
Right.
let's spend our time focusing on who we're worshiping and not what our worship looks like. I think is really what I want us to
Right.
take away.
And not to be judgmental
Yes.
against
Yes.
other,
I was about to say that.
Mhm.
just, not doing it the way we think it should be
Right.
done. I mean, so far as to, and I had this as experience, we could use it for another show, but there was a church, Brazilian church, that asked to join the Alleghenies Conference because the conference they were in forbid them to worship in their native language.
Mm.
What?
Mm.
Yes, true story. But we'll
Have
tackle that
mercy.
from another time.
No, let's go on for another half an hour. Come on.
Right.
Let's go.
What you
want? You want names, right?
You
You want names. I want names.
Let
Let's
me just
go.
say this as I know we're shutting down, but I do want to piggyback when Chuck was saying not to be judgmental. The Bible says that God's house should be a house of prayer for all people.
Yeah.
Let it
Mhm.
be that,
Mm.
let us not demonize things, oh, that's not of God. That's because it may seem different to us, but let it be truly a house of prayer. And so, hey, Tosh, some people may clap their hand and some may not,
Exactly.
That's
some
right.
may internalize and just humming. Somebody else may stand up and praise God. Let it be a house of prayer for all people, and live that thing. Worship is our daily life, surrendering to God. And so I just wanted to share that with us, as that's one of our take home messages,
Yes.
that we allow God's house to be for all people.
Wow.
Amen.
Amen.
See, the people in the chat, though, they're not letting us wrap up.
Nah, they're not. They're not.
We got Rodney throwing out
Yep.
this question.
Yep. I see.
And of
Rodney.
course, I want to put it up there because, it might be a good point here. His caveat: is there a place where we must stop a personal style of worship in a corporate setting? And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about maybe what I'm doing in this corporate setting interrupts you. Is it inappropriate? Is worship ever inappropriate? I guess that's really.
Did your girls turn around on your
Yeah.
Sunday worship this morning and be like, "Mom,
Right. Mom, you all right?
stay in step"? Yep. Stay in
No.
step. Stay in step. No,
Oh.
even though I'm joking about that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
the answer to Pastor Grissom, Rodney, is no. No, corporate should not stop you from having your personal, even where you are corporately. And now don't make a mess of the place. And you know what I mean? Because God is not a God of confusion.
Yes.
He's
Right.
not. He's never been a God of confusion. There's nowhere where he has ever been. I'm not
I'm not letting none tear up my church. But listen, Pastor. Let me share this with you, Pastor Grissom. There was a woman that was coming to my church. She was an apostolic, and she was shouting. I would tell my, I said, don't bother her, let her shout, in the aisle. And then one day she came all the way down into the pulpit, and she just started shouting in front of the pulpit. So I didn't say anything to her then, but after service, I said, sis, I love the way you enjoy Christ, but just do it in the aisle over there. Don't run down to the front. I said, so but praise him, but
Right.
in the aisle
Over
where
there.
you were, So
Yes,
she was-
it's a safety issue. The fire marshal,
but she she understood, and she wasn't angry. She came from a church where, they would run all around
Sure.
the church.
Oh, yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and
victory
so I
lap.
just said,
Mhm.
just in the aisle, but don't run down to the front,
Right.
Mhm.
trying to
You
preach the
affirmed her
word.
first. Yeah.
I'd like and Chuck, I love Carrie to death because we're musicians together. But she's like, can we please learn the lessons of 1888? Guys, when we get back in the green room, that needs to be a show all by itself. The lessons of 1888.
Righteousness by faith.
Yeah, I think yeah. We need to, and I think that that's a great show for us to have later on, because it's almost like we're right back. Right.
You
back
know,
where-
I'm gonna put my wife on the spot.
Just
now,
tell her you love her, man. We good.
Oh yeah, she knows I love her. But we may want to invite her on as a special guest.
I was just
All
thinking
right.
that, Chuck. You reading my mind. Yeah.
Both of
Right.
y'all are just her, because we don't.
No, no, I'll just be quiet.
I was about to say he's going to bow out when she speaks.
Right, right. Something's going to go wrong with my camera. No, but seriously though, because I know the studies that she's done on the topic of worship, and her of course being a musician, she has a lot to offer on the topic.
Sure.
And so we may want to consider inviting her on, if anything, just to talk about the different music styles and worship and the history behind them. So I'm probably going to get something thrown at me when I walk in the house tonight. 'Cause you put me on the show.
You'll be covered.
No.
You'll be covered.
Right.
So we have a suggestion in the chat from Tiffany Brissett. She wants to talk
A
about
future topic. Okay.
holidays and paganism.
Mhm.
So all of y'all who already put up a Christmas tree, don't put it up yet. Don't decorate it yet before we have the episode.
Or if you are from Chuck's indigenous people,
Right.
Chuck ain't eating that turkey. It ain't coming.
Sacred bird.
Big bird. Right.
Yeah, some people are really angry right now because they just came from Costco with all their Christmas decorations. So.
No, that will be a good topic, and
Let's
Hold the
do it.
receipt.
Let's do it.
we will do it in the month of December. Let's tackle that one. I know next week, this is we're leading up to Thanksgiving. We do want to take some time to talk about that. You're talking about worship. I mean, Thanksgiving can be a part of that worship experience. So,
and isn't it so interesting that Thanksgiving falls in the month of Indigenous people?
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
So you want to get the real story about Thanksgiving?
Well,
Yeah.
Chuck,
Well,
your blood pressure, Chuck.
wait,
Easy.
wait,
Woo.
wait.
Chuck.
I'll be like E. Cleveland. You ain't ready for that. You're not ready for that.
We are.
I used to love E. Cleveland when he did that. He would preach and he'd go through his notes and he'd go to one page and says, "Nah, you're not ready for that.
Yeah,
You're not ready for that."
Yeah, skip that.
Yeah.
No. But thank you guys. This has been a great conversation. I mean, I always love showing up because I learned so much from you guys. You guys are so intelligent. You have so much wisdom behind you. And we hope that our
just the one organ thing, Pat. The one organ thing.
I know, the little skirt thing, and now he thinks, okay. But no, it's been a great dialogue. And I have to say, when we have these, I feel like this conversation has really changed forever the way I see worship. And this is kind of what we're here for. We're here to upset our way of thinking and then kind of set ourselves up for a brighter path. And so thank you guys.
The truth will set you free.
Exactly.
Amen.
The truth will set you free. All right, everybody. Have a great worshipful week.
See you guys next week.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, hold on.
We have our email down.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, because somebody has to.
What was he pointing?
Yeah, somebody's going to email Chuck or say something about.
Yes.
About
If there's something you didn't want to put in the chat, feel free to email us. We do read them. If you have some suggestions or some comments or things that you want us to bring out, upset@acsda.com. And don't forget to share this. We are on all major podcast platforms and we're on YouTube and Facebook. So share this with people. Get the conversation started wherever you are. Have your own discussions about these things. It's not just for us, it's for you to take some of these tidbits and run and share with all you come in contact with.
And also, if you want to know where to get a Hammond B3 skirt, contact Pastor Pat.
Right.
Last week it was the shoes. Now we're talking about skirts. We might have one more joke for you soon. All right, guys. See you next time. Have a great week.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.